Hi, everyone. I'm Krish Ramineni, co-founder and CEO at Fireflies AI. Just a quick show of hands if you've heard of Fireflies or ever seen it in a meeting or used it. I'd love to see. Cool. Okay. It's great to see that. And this is my first time here at SaaStr. When I didn't know anything about SaaS, the first thing I came across was a blog by Jason Lemkin. I read that many years ago, watched all the video content and podcasts. So it's full circle to be finally here in person. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we've done to build a company that is in many ways contrarian to what you traditionally hear in Silicon Valley. So unlike other talks, I want to talk more about what are these different challenges that we faced and what led us to, one, choosing to go down the route of building, one, a profitable company, and then two, how do we do it raising as little venture capital as possible? So quick background on Fireflies, some quick stats. Today, we're serving about 20 million people that Fireflies takes notes for across several 100,000 orgs. We are in 8 figures in ARR, and we've scaled past that a year ago. And we've been profitable since 2023. So these are a few things that we felt were very different from all the conventional stuff that I've read. And we've raised about 20 million to date in total funding, including our Series A. The funny part is to be able to build this sort of business, we didn't spend almost any money on marketing till this year. And there were a lot of lessons learned, a lot of decisions that were made that went against the grain, but it proved out to make things easier for us in the long run. And the company is fully remote, and we're about 100 people today. The other part of the business is it's mostly been focused on engineering, and that's where we spend most of our time and energy in R&D. Typically, usually a company, once it gets to a certain scale, your GTM function outscales your engineering function, but that right there also is something we've done differently. So this is a new playbook. There's many elements, many components, but I want to talk through 3 of the core pillars that helped us get to this scale and the things that we did differently. And again, the point of all of this is every company is different. Every customer is different. So always look back at how this would relate to your customer base, your use case, and see what may apply, what may not apply. But at the end of the day, your company is an extension of what you do. And as long as you are growing in a healthy rate, you create happy customers, and you're innovating, I really don't think it matters how you get there, because everyone finds a different path. There's a lot of common VC advice that we've heard when we were out fundraising, what we've been told that many of you might have also heard along the way. One of the things we heard in the early days was, do not go horizontal, focus on verticals. It's predictable, it's easier to market, you know your ICP, you can do a much easier job of finding your sellers or your buyers. The other part is SMB has a lot of churn. Like, why would you go down that? Go after mid-market enterprise where you have a predictable sales model and you can get the right sort of customers that stick around. Like, these SMBs, they're barely paying you, a few $1,000s a year, and they're not going to actually stick around if something goes wrong with their business. Another common piece of advice that we've gotten was, don't do freemium. Today, a lot of people encourage freemium, but when we had started 5-6 years ago, freemium was seen as a cost center, and it didn't make sense to do that and have to spend all of your resources on supporting that. And then this has been another one where people have gone back and forth on this, but before the pandemic, when we started our company, we said we're going to be fully remote from day one, and today Fireflies has employees in 20 countries. We decided to build it this way. We said we don't want to wake up and go into the office. And during the pandemic, everyone said remote is the future, this is the way companies are going to work. And now you're hearing both from big tech companies as well as small tech companies, it's time to come back to the office at least 3 days a week, at least 5 days a week, because if you want to innovate and if you want to move fast, you have to be in the office. But we've always been steadfast about building a remote team. And that's something that we still hold to today. Another part is hiring folks with lots of experience from larger firms where they've already seen it, done it. And to be honest, whenever we found the most experienced hires, they actually ended up being some of our least effective hires. And there's something contrarian about that as well that I'll talk about. But we chose to focus more on hiring people and promoting people from within and raising their skill level that way. Last but not least, we get to hear this all the time, is about raise a war chest, raise as much money as you possibly can, because it's a very competitive market out there. There's going to be lots of competitors that will spin up, and you need to raise that money in order to go compete, go hit the phones hard, and then go build the product faster. In the AI world, I honestly think this is less of a moat because the cost of building software has significantly gone down, and small teams are going to be able to do a lot more with the resources that they have. So VCs aren't fully wrong. We've done the contrary on every one of those bullet points that's listed there. And there's a reason for why they say this. They invest in thousands of companies. They know the pattern. They know the playbooks. And they know how to build a coin-operated business and where to invest capital in. What we always felt is startups in general, each one of you is an outlier for what you are doing and how you're building your business. And to be an outlier among outliers is not necessarily a bad thing. And so I'll start with 3 of the core pillars that have helped us continue to be contrarian. The first one is embracing product-led growth fully. And to be honest, there was no other way. Self-service was the only way when you are building a horizontal company. And we always felt that if a customer was able to sign up, use the product, pay for it, without having to talk to a human, that's a huge win. If they're not able to do that, that's a bug. If someone wants to talk to a salesperson, we'll be there for them. But ideally, many people just want to start, try it, and then buy it on their own. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how to optimize that experience, and we took a lot away from that. The other thing is, when you're building for a broad ICP, we said anyone that has meetings should be using Fireflies. Any team that has a Zoom call or a Teams call should be using Fireflies. So when we started doing that, there's no way I can train up salespeople to cover every industry, every market, and every use case. Like, it's very different selling a product to salespeople versus selling it to recruiters versus people in the finance industry. So the only way we could make this happen was to create a product-led growth, self-serve flywheel. And to be honest, you can't manually onboard millions of users, especially if they're paying you very little amounts of money. It just doesn't make sense from a cost ROI point of view. You need to be able to let people help themselves. So that was one of the fastest ways for us to build this sort of PLG function. Another thing when we built for PLG is there's a lot of different things you can do on go-to-market and demand gen. You can be doing blogs, you can be doing SEO, although people say now with AI search, SEO and blogs are not performing the same way. You should be doing performance marketing, you should be doing TikTok videos. They'll tell you a lot of different things, like a lot of different channels. What we felt was we looked at our funnel and we said, what is that one growth loop that we want to continuously drive? And for us, that was how many meetings did people have with Fireflies, how many people shared the notes that Fireflies generated, and then how many people signed up as a result of that. We just exclusively focused on that funnel because we felt that product virality and word of mouth is going to trump anything else. And in honesty, we tried blogs, we tried SEO, we tried outbound, but they were all very ineffective. And I'll tell you one thing, if you have embraced PLG, you'll realize the cost of product-led growth as a channel is a lot cheaper than any other channel that you'll experiment with. Another part of building Fireflies is we have to be able to price for volume. And what that means is when you have such a high TAM, you should be able to price lower. You have the opportunity to price lower. The SMBs, it's tedious. It's often very, very challenging to get people to pay for something, especially if you're not considered vital to their business, they're not going to pay for it. And the other challenge with SMBs is that they have a higher churn rate. And when you are using that product, and if it just doesn't deliver value, they're going to be the quickest to churn. Whereas with enterprise, you can lock into a multi-year contract. You can basically sell before you've even implemented, and then you can charge another $20,000, $30,000 on implementation, but you can't do that with SMB. What you see is what you get, and you're literally putting yourself out there. But the one good part of SMB is they move fast. There is little decision-making time. Once they see it, once they like it, they purchase the product very quickly, and it becomes predictable. And when you are in a early market, a new category, the most important signal that we wanted to optimize for was how quickly can we get people to adopt Fireflies and not have pricing be a blocker. So we wanted to price it in a very affordable way. And we also said, a lot of times when you have salespeople, one of the tactics is you list a very high price, or you don't show any pricing on your website. And then when someone comes in, you don't tell them the price. And then afterwards, you quote a higher price and you negotiate. We wanted to take out all the negotiation from this whole process. And by doing that, you're accelerating the sales cycle and you're reducing the need for people to have to go and sell the product. And it also makes expansion a lot more frictionless. There were competitors in our market that were charging hundreds of dollars per seat, per license. And we said, we're going to charge $10 per user, and we're going to keep it that way. And in our history of Fireflies, we never raised the prices in the last 5+ years. And when you do that, when someone says, hey, I really like it, I want to buy it for more people within the org, you no longer get into a discussion about pricing and negotiations, because you know that the price you see is the price that everyone else gets. It's fair, and it becomes a no-brainer. But the truth is, freemium is extremely painful. And if any of you guys out here in the audience are working on freemium, you'll realize it just takes a very long time to get freemium running. It's like pushing a boulder up a cliff, and then each time it comes back a little bit, and then you keep pushing. But once you get that flywheel running, it does pay for itself. And the reason is that every customer becomes your ambassador, and every person that's using your product is going to talk about it. And like I said in the beginning, word of mouth is like the ultimate lever that you have. And when every person's using the product, the more you're going to be able to market, the more people you're going to be able to reach. So freemium was expensive, especially because infrastructure, the cost to support freemium was really pricey for us. And it forces you to build a product that people actually want. When you have a great sales rep, what you're able to do is you're able to cut through the onboarding flow, the payment portal, and just be able to have them onboard manually and sell it and send out the invoice. With self-service and freemium, you can't afford to do that. The other thing is, when we talk about creating a lot of these ambassadors, we were able to track that funnel and saw that every person that used Fireflies, there was an LTV associated with it, even if they were a free user. How many new users are they able to bring in? And so even in B2B, we had this consumer-like viral loop that helped us scale in a very cost-effective manner. And in a new category, trying is believing. People will not listen until they actually get their hands on it and actually try it. A lot of times when you pay gate or when you say you have to request a demo, you have to go through a discovery session before you can use the product. In a new market, that's just not going to fly. It's just going to take a lot longer. And if you're doing 6 months of RFPs for enterprises, the market will have moved on, and you won't have a chance to validate your technology in front of real customers. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible within 2 clicks for you to start signing up and start using Fireflies. The second piece of all of this is, Krish, this is great. Like, you're doing freemium, you're doing PLG, but that sounds expensive. And you say you want to build a profitable business. How does the math up? And the truth is, AI is expensive, freemium is expensive, and in the early days, I'll tell you how bad it was. The more our power users used the product, the more money we lost. And we were, even for the paying users, we would lose money on them using the product. So we had a real problem here that we needed to fix. And not to mention, in the early days, transcription is extremely expensive. LLMs were very expensive. And we had no choice. We had to make an architectural decision to build our own infrastructure. And when you're doing video streaming at such high scale with millions of calls being processed, this is a challenge. And this can take up to a year to move a lot of our core components off of AWS and GCP onto our own bare metal servers. So that's a big challenge that we had to decide on. But ultimately, we said that we want to flood the market. We want to make everyone have access to AI in an affordable way. So the 6 to 12 months that we invest here is going to make up for itself over the long run. And it definitely did. And it saved us a lot more money. And we were able to go hard on our freemium business. And that's what I always like to say is sometimes your VCs are going to tell you, hey, you got to burn money to make money, just do it. But at the end of the day, you don't really have a business if you're spending $5 to acquire a customer and then you're getting back $1 in return. So you got to make sure that the CAC and LTV line up. But more importantly, if you're building AI, and almost everyone needs to be is working on AI these days, you have to make the math add up, especially if your pricing is not usage-based. Margins matter, and I've talked to many AI startups. I've been funding, investing in startups right now where they're losing money on AI. Same problems that we had when we were working on transcription and note-taking. And then can you truly get to SaaS gross margins, the 70%, the 80%? And early on, that just didn't seem like the case. Like we weren't going to be able to do that. But this is actually something, once you have something that's working, it's very important to be able to do this. Otherwise, if you let this technical debt build up, what ends up happening is you go and realize, wow, we're crushing it. Let's go raise another round of $30 million, $40 million of funding. And you get on this hamster wheel, this cycle where you need to constantly raise money, and you ignore the fact that you are burning money in other places. It's perfectly fine to let certain fires run, but if your margins, if you can address that problem earlier on, it will make scaling a lot more smoother. And infrastructure optimization was the key. How we optimize the life cycles was the key, but also creating smart paywalls and getting the people that have already gotten value out of the product to upgrade and reach that aha moment faster. What is that aha moment? How many meetings do they need to have? When do people experience this and feel like, hey, now I feel like I should pay for the product? And instead of raising prices on the free tier or trying to limit the free tier extensively, we focused more on adding a lot more to our pro, business, and enterprise tiers, where people that have started using the product automatically self-selected themselves to go to the higher tiers on their own. So cost is not just about infrastructure and scale and marketing. Cost is also in terms of the way you design your organization. Flatter organization meant that we could move faster. There was no bloat. We can make decisions a lot quicker. If we can go through 5, 6 iteration cycles before our competitor goes through one, that's a win for us. And we created an org where we had no middle management, essentially almost no managers at the company. And the roadmap was just set by myself and my co-founder. And all of the ICs would be able to work off that same roadmap that I was able to set, down to the leads, down to the individuals. And this helped us, right? I'm not going to get it right every time, but what it did was when we did need to course correct, we can course correct a lot faster. There was no politics. No one's job was on the line because we made the wrong decision. But we all went down this one direction. OK, that was not the right rabbit hole. Let's pivot. Let's shift. And this helps you move a lot quicker. And fully remote was also possible when we have a flat org, because quite honestly, I don't do one-on-ones. And I have about 30 plus direct reports in the business. But we're able to run this in a way where I'm giving feedback directly on the fly, async, can have multiple conversations over Slack. And this actually saved us a lot of money and a lot of decision-making fatigue. This is something I also found that made it possible to build a flat org, which is emphasis on engineers. Even people in our sales and recruiting functions were engineers. And the purpose of that is not your engineering degree. It's more about thinking as a system builder. And how do you automate things that are mundane and repetitive? We used AI in every portion of our business, whether it's from sales to recruiting to support. And a lot of the folks that are working in those core functions say, Krish, I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. How can we automate it? That's the conversation we tend to have. And we wanted to have even ops and GTM be run by engineers. And in this AI era, even if your folks don't have like the perfect writing skills, the perfect marketing skills, if they're able to build tools and if they're able to have these systems in place, these LLMs are definitely going to help you personalize at scale, reach more people at scale, send those tailored outbound emails at scale. So for us, we treated marketing as an engineering problem. And system design and automation applies to every part of the org and not just engineering. And this lets us measure how many things we ship. Just like how for sales, you're tracking how many deals are being closed, how much commission should be being paid. We track how much engineering is shipping, how much marketing is shipping, what's effective, what channel's not effective, and that helped us move a lot faster. Another part is nurturing talent from within. We really emphasize on focusing on not experience, but focusing on people that have a high ceiling, and then training and working on them. We made the mistake in the early days of trying to hire a big tech executive. We went through a headhunter firm, and to this day, I do regret that we spent $70,000 and had nothing to show for it, and it was a failed hire. And we didn't even end up making an offer to that person. So that was something that we realized was, you know what, we're going to look internally, and if people can learn, let's give them as much as they need in order to scale. And I always say this is contrarian to what other advice that people say is, we don't hire until it hurts, until we're actually stretched. A lot of times, firms will overhire and then realize, oh, we don't need that many salespeople, and then they'll trim the organization. We hired slowly, we hired intentionally, and we made sure that if one of us could do the job, and then we were ready to hand it off to someone that can do it better, that was the right time to hire. I'm not a natural salesperson, but I focused on closing the first 100 customers, having those conversations with every one of those people. And then once I knew I could create a repeatable playbook, then we hired our first 2 salespeople. So if you are a founder that's a technical founder, that you're not comfortable with speaking to customers, trust me, like if you can do that function in some shape or form, it will make it a lot better, and people will like respect you a lot more because you know what you're talking about and you're not being wishy-washy. And the other part of making a flat org is we tried to hire only senior folks. We made the conscious decision that hiring one person that was experienced in terms of their skill sets, not in terms of how big an org they ran. That's not the experience I'm talking about, but senior in terms of their technical abilities or the selling abilities. When we hired someone like that, they were able to manage themselves. And another part of Fireflies was we did our compensation very differently. We focused on paying like a hedge fund or a PE firm where ICs at our firm can make more than managers. And it's not this race to see who becomes a manager. There is more autonomy, there's more upside, and just like how salespeople get quarterly bonuses, we've set up a bonus structure for every person in our org, not just our sales org, where we are measured on the speed of the output, not how busy you are, and based on that, how that it's driving the top line and how it's contributing to the overall business. And then we pay bonuses to every person in the org, from engineering to marketing to product, on a quarterly basis. The last pillar was around customer obsession. And we took it to an extreme, to the point where this was our only North Star. Like, we actually didn't have any roadmap for the first 2 years of building the product. We just focused on addressing support tickets and then solving feature requests. All we would do was build product, write code, answer support tickets, and then when we couldn't do that enough, we hired people to handle support tickets, and we funnel all the support tickets in. To this day, like I read every single NPS feedback. When someone churns and they explain why, we read it, and we have a discussion around it. It's very easy, having been an XPM at a large tech company, to go into a conference room and build in silo. But at the end of the day, if you can actually listen to what customers are saying, you can iterate on that feedback really quickly. The other advantage of SMB is people will tell you right away if they think your product is crap. And they will tell you right away if they don't want to pay for it. sometimes I would ask myself, I am going this far for someone that's paying me $10 a month, whereas there's someone, one of my colleagues in an enterprise company, that is charging $1 million, and their shipping cadence is once every 6 months. But it was hard in the beginning, but it was definitely worth it because we were able to build ultimately a better product. And by tracking customer journey, it's not just about the onboarding part, but it's also the entire life cycle from when they sign up to how they activate to when they churn, learning about every piece of that funnel. And a lot of times, if you're building a self-serve product, and we couldn't afford to hop on sales calls in the early days, we felt like, okay, there's 5 people asking for the same feature. There's 10 people that are saying they're stuck in this flow. That's a bug, let's fix it. So the faster we fix those bugs, the less support tickets we got. So all we optimized for was how do we make the product reliable, stable, and build the things that they need so that they're not coming back and asking and filing more support tickets. Because if there's too many support tickets, we're not going to be able to execute. So if you're not a PLG company, but you have demos, pipelines, that's also a good proxy. Again, use that with a grain of salt because a person that's not your customer will tell you a lot of things. They'll tell you all the stuff that you should have, and they'll decide to buy. But when someone is actually paying for your product and is a user, usually they have skin in the game. So I want to wrap up by sharing like the key takeaways here. The playbook. One is if you can find a big addressable market, go horizontal, go PLG, and price for volume. And then you can get a PLG flywheel going, and the cost of acquisition becomes very, very cheap. I will say that our free users, while they may cost us millions of dollars, they've helped us with tens of millions of dollars in marketing. Use metrics to measure the funnel. Remember, you can be doing 100 different things, but usually there's 10% of your activity that's going to be bringing in you 90% of the results. So focus on those core metrics and build it as a flywheel where you can grow. Manage your unit economics, because once things start working, you don't want it to become expensive, and you'll know when you need to make that decision. It might mean taking 2 steps back compared to what your competitors are doing, but it's going to help you jump ahead 5 steps once that's done. And track cash margins relentlessly. Like, we look at everything. When we have more than 1 Fireflies in our meetings, we kick it out because we said this is a waste of transcription costs. We still do it to this day. So as long as you're able to track those unit economics, you will be able to make it work. And last but not least, have a lean team that listens to customers and use customer feedback to drive your roadmap in the early days. And then once you scale past 10 million, 20 million ARR, you can focus on other channels. But in PLG mode, this was the key to helping us get to profitability ASAP. Thank you.